and welcome to another episode of All Things Conflict with me, your host, Maria Arpa. And today, as ever, I'm delighted to welcome back my dear friend, Paul Baker, as we talk about startups and entrepreneurship and, beginning with a group of people. So let's see what we've got in store. Thank you. Paul, welcome back.
Thank you, Maria. I'm getting used to it.
Yeah, don't get too comfortable though.
No worries. I've got some plans for being a bit uncomfortable today. So
Have
that's
you?
all right. Yeah,
Right, okay. Well, that doesn't surprise me. No, I love doing this with you, Paul. It is a delight to have these conversations with you because we've been having these conversations for years, and I just think I don't know, I just want to share it with people, I suppose.
Yeah, and it's very exciting to actually see how Systemic Win and Dialogue Roadmap actually combine to make the world better.
Yeah. So we've had so much of your wisdom, and I've had lots of your wisdom over the last 20 odd years, which has definitely contributed to the work that I've done. There's no doubt about that. So I thought what we might do is sort of dream a little together today. And I wanted to imagine that there's, a group of people in a startup, perhaps they're entrepreneurial, or it's one entrepreneur gathering some followers, or, somebody setting up a not-for-profit, or, it's this group of people when they've decided that they've got some wonderful new product that they want to, bring into birth in the world. And they were starting by saying, what's the philosophy? What's the key principle? How shall we do this? How shall we make something greater than the sum of the parts? And how if they happen to be watching this podcast, how would they begin instead of just the traditional routes?
I don't even know what the traditional routes are, actually. I mean, I think lots of different people have lots of different ideas about how to succeed. And the main thing for me is, how do we actually make really good use of the situation we're in, which may be wonderfully abundant and creative, and it may be a complete catastrophe. So for me, the very first thing is, what's the plan the person's actually got?
So let's dream that someone's come up with a product and they're going to take it on Dragon's Den, or they found some investors, and they're at that critical point of actually the prototype and the manufacturing, and they're going to get this thing out there in the world.
Yeah. So the first thing I want to know is, how will they know that they're either off track or on track? Because it's like, we all have plans, and people say in wars, the first encounter with the enemy destroys your plans. But if you know you haven't got a plan, well, at least then you say, well, are we just busking it, or are we going to revise and improve our plan? So that's the very first thing, is because I suppose you could say it's a sort of Taoist. How do we work with what's happening rather than impose a rigid, try and make it happen just by pure willpower? So it's really crucial, is what is your expectation, and how quickly you're going to notice when your plans or expectations are not happening.
So that sounds to me like, where is my compass and where is my barometer? Is that a good way of putting it?
Yeah, I mean, I think I quite like the metaphor of the journey, the dialogue roadmap. Mm-hmm. It's like, what map have you got for this journey?
Yeah. So, but if I understand you, I mean, I can have a map, and as you said, am I going to do this through pure willpower? But what I think you're asking a richer question is, how am I going to get feedback that I may or may not like, that keeps me in some sort of reality?
Yeah. So if you use the map analogy, is where I think I am on the map, does it correspond to the territory I'm in?
Right. Yeah,
You
that's
know,
a really good.
and have I factored the weather into the map? You know, I got a nice map, but if it's based on it all being sunny and it's pouring with rains and it's a gale and there are floods everywhere, the map's not going to work so well, and it might get wet and soggy, and you might get the map blown away. You know.
So, what is the basic equipment I'm going to need to be able to navigate the unexpected?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that a good way of
Yeah.
putting it?
Yeah. Absolutely. And if someone is a highly competent person who's well organized and well resourced, engaging with systemic win is going to be very different to someone who's in a mess, who's poorly resourced, you know, who doesn't know what they're trying to do. You know, so the starting point is always going to be very individual. And the systemic part of it is, what's your awareness of the systems? You know, there's the system of self, there's the system of the other person, the other people we're dealing with, there's the contextual system. Do you have enough systemic awareness? If you're only focusing on one bit of it, you're going to get some very nasty shocks coming very quickly.
The way I would look at this is, if I were an investor, so
Yep.
if I'm going to invest millions of pounds in your business or enterprise or whatever, you know, there's all the kind of detail of making sure, you know, the product, the placement, you know, all of that, the marketing and having someone that's going to buy it and all of that takes place. But if I were an investor now, I would say the last thing I want is to invest my money in a group of people for whom I can't tell if they're going to start fighting each other later on, and that there's going to be a lot of unnecessary conflict or unnecessary turmoil. And so I would want to know that right at the beginning, we're doing something, or this business that I'm investing in has given thought to, you know, the world of employment law, the world of people, the world of cooperation, the world of mutuality, so that actually it's not just we're going to bang something out there, make a load of profit, and we don't care about anybody.
Exactly. I mean, it's something that you've taught me a lot about, which is the importance of good contracts, good agreements. And so, yeah, we have to cover all the basic agreements, including when things don't go as we hope they go, when one person's finding another person really difficult. How do we have good conflict processes that kick in at a really early stage, and particularly have an aim that at the end of the conflict, we're much better off than we were before that conflict began? It's not, oh, we've just patched over the hole. It's actually we're in a stronger place because we have a deeper level of understanding and trust of each other. So those are the sorts of agreements we've actually got to get in place.
Well, now I think we're in the conversation. Now I think we've begun, because that for me, you know, you've just said it in one sentence, that we all agree that, you know, there are going to be things that happen that we weren't expecting. We're going to have little arguments or disagreements, or there may be a resource issue. But what is the system that we need to put in place to ensure that when we come out the other side of it, we're better off?
Absolutely.
And I don't know that many people think like that.
It's strange, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it is, because if you don't have to look at the world very much to notice that things often go wrong. and that most people, it's like a surprise that goes wrong, and then don't do it very well, and as soon as like it's not awfully wrong, and then they think, okay, that's good enough. But you've left a festering sore. You've left something that next time is just going to undermine what's already happening.
I know, it's just, it never fails to sort of surprise me just how much when you know, conflicts arise or disputes arise, how it's a race to the bottom, you know, who's going to annihilate who.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I call systemic lose. Yeah. I do something that causes you a problem. You then react in a way that causes me a problem. Our problem causes those around us a problem. Then we're starting to damage the environment. And there's less and less for fewer and fewer people.
So yeah, I mean, absolutely. So now let's get back to, okay, so the key contract, and so if we're saying a startup or a new business or a new enterprise of some description says, actually, what we want to do is we want to accept that there will be things we weren't expecting.
Yeah.
So I call those, there's predictable and unpredictable disturbances.
Yeah.
That's the way I like to look at it. And what we want to do is we want to ensure that we're always better and stronger when we come out the other side of it.
Yeah.
So now I'm going to say, okay, so there's this guy called Paul Baker and this woman called Maria Arpa, and they've got this systemic win and this dialogue roadmap. How do we marry and integrate those things into what we do right at the beginning?
Yeah. So I suppose the first thing is I want to know, what is it that this organization, this project is trying to achieve? And you could take it into the classic SMART. Everyone knows what SMART stands for: specific, measurable, etc., etc. And then you need to know why. Why do you want that? What's motivating you? What's so important about that? And is that just a step on the way? There's something more important. Because until you've got those really deep whys of what's involved, why you're going to do that, you can't work out how to do it. So most people, their smart isn't very smart, and they don't really know why they're trying to do it. Or, okay, so I want to make a lot of money. Okay, so you've made lots of money. Then what? What are you going to do with all that money you've made? Well, I want to make more money. Well, what's enough? When you've got all that, whatever that objective is, what is it that really is to your core important?
Yeah, so that's a really good doorway in, isn't it? I want to make lots of money, but money isn't the be all and end all. Money is an agent or an access to other things, isn't it? So
it's an amazing access to resources. It's a resource and access to resources. Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to make loads of money because I don't feel safe in the world, for example. I've never felt safe, and I've told myself that if I make loads of money, I can buy myself enough cushions that I never have to bump up against the bad stuff.
Yeah.
Or one could say I want to make loads of money because actually I can use that money to help lots of other people. And so if I make the money, then I can have enough comfort to be able to go out and do something amazing. Or I want the money, it's the money might buy me fame, so the ego's talking. It's a really interesting thing, isn't it, to understand what the money is there to do, or what the pursuit of the money is for.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's okay. So then we've asked those questions, and then the next thing, if I'm understanding this conversation at all, is what is the contracting?
Yeah. So in the end, there's what's the first step, and how are we going to know that's been achieved successfully, and if it hasn't, what do we do? So we can say it's your fault or it's my fault, but we also want to understand what's happened, that thing we were aiming for, which involved different of us making agreements about what we'll do, when we'll do it, and all the rest of it. And something I've learned from you is, if I've made an agreement which I can now see I'm not going to be able to keep, I should say, I'm going to have difficulty keeping this contract. It's no longer, I can't do it anymore, but I should give you as much warning as I possibly can, so we can renegotiate the right contract for this particular time, rather than breaking it, and then we've got more of a mess. The more we can get into it at the right time, the better it's going to go.
Well, yeah, you're actually naming something that's a very particular bugbear of mine, is if we make an agreement and that agreement has a delivery date, for example, what I'm contracting with you is that you have enough knowledge, understanding, preparation to be able to predict if you're not going to be able to do that. But so many people say, well, they're just hoping for the best, and then they don't deliver, and then that's where the dispute starts.
Exactly. Well, I mean, if we use this sort of weather analogy, if we're hoping for a nice outdoor event, and we're going to have marquees and things to cope if the weather's not so good, but then you're faced with a hurricane or something, I'm still probably not going to be able to deliver. And you can say, well, you've broken your contract, and my tents have torn apart in the gales or whatever it is, but it doesn't help the event work.
No, absolutely. Actually, it reminded me of my wedding to David when we had this wedding in the beautiful island of Gozo, and which was supposed to be sunny. And funnily enough, the night before, I had a terrible nightmare that there were going to be storms. And it's a whole story that I could go into. And I rang the wedding planner at the crack of dawn and said, I think there's going to rain. I've had this dream. And luckily, we were in Gozo, which is a really small community, and she was literally able to magic a marquee out of nowhere.
And did it rain?
In a couple of hours. And it did rain.
Oh, right.
And it did rain. Yeah, it was really, really interesting. But it never occurred to me before. And I was lucky to be somewhere where those, that could be literally magicked out of thin air. But, yeah.
Mm-hmm. There's an element I want to bring in, because I think there are two fundamental metaphors of life. So one is the journey, life is a journey. And the other one, which I know that you don't like so much, which is life as a game.
Mm-hmm.
And games are not trivial. A lot of people think it's just a bit of fun. But you could say there's a game of life and death.
You'll be pleased to know I've come round to the idea that it's all a game. Oh, perhaps I haven't told you.
You haven't told me that, Maria.
No, I haven't told you that. Surprise, yeah.
But the thing about it is, a game has one of three results. You can have a result where just the resources are just distributed differently. It's a win-lose game. The winner gets more, the loser gets less, or none of it. You have another game, which is the result of people playing the game is there's much less for everyone, and war is a good example of that. And the other game is the game where the longer the game goes on, the more resources there are for everyone. So one's positive sum, one's zero sum, one's negative sum. And we really need to be aware which game we're playing, because you don't want to hang around in the negative sum game where there's less and less for everyone. You want to get out of it, and you want to get all the best the people that you really care about out of that game, because it's dangerous.
Yeah, I've come round to the whole game thing because I suddenly had a revelation a couple of years ago, which I've been really playing with, is that actually what we want to do, or what our true human nature is to vibrate at the frequency of love.
Yep.
So for me, that's what I've been working on, is if I can vibrate at the frequency of love, then I can play any game I want.
Yeah.
Because at the frequency of love, I'm going to be less inclined to move towards injury, loss and harm.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I was thinking about one of the situation that people are starting off their project. They have to decide is, what game are we in the middle of? Our society is in a pretty strange zero-sum, verging on the negative sum game. There are lots of positive sum games around, but Systemic Win is saying, let's consciously create some positive sum games, or let's turn this one into a positive sum game and gradually spread those out, rather than be locked into the horrors of the other two. And most people are so obsessed with zero sum and winning and losing, and they don't realize that attitude then tips it into negative sum, where there's more and more injury, loss and harm, as you said.
Yeah, no, I think, I've seen that where, people that have ended up, I used to have a private practice, but, I don't anymore. But people in the past who have turned up in my therapy room or whatever you want to call it. And there are the people for whom life just hasn't worked at all. And a lot of sort of grieving and loss and mourning for what could have been. But actually more interesting were the people who got everything on the face of it. They went through the systems, they navigated these systems, and they achieved everything that we're supposed to achieve as consumers. And it hasn't worked at all, and it still hasn't worked, and there's an even bigger loss.
Well, one of the things, and I think this ties in with what our real objective is when you do something, how much satisfaction do you get from it? If you're just, oh, well, I've got that way marker, I've got past that stage of the journey, you get no satisfaction out of it, you're losing energy, and you're also not being a positive energy for those around you. You could say there isn't much love, there isn't much gratitude there. So it's learning, how do we actually get value out of what we've done, appreciate it, and use it as something that builds, so we're better resourced to go on to the next stage. So yeah, just recognizing, how do I appreciate it? And someone said, oh, that was just horrible, I'm so glad it's over. Well, you could also be, well, it could have been a lot worse. And that has a different feel to it. We avoided it being that really bad. It was just difficult. So being in that spirit of gratitude or love, appreciation is so fundamental.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that actually is really interesting about, people starting out, with, this word entrepreneurship, people who want to go out and build things in the world. I would sort of reel all the way back and say, are you going into entrepreneurship out of fear, trying to find safety, trying to stay one step ahead of, destitution or humiliation or a fear of vulnerability, so you're going to take on the world, but actually it's all about saving yourself or survival? Or are you going into entrepreneurship because you've done that work and you absolutely do trust?
Yeah.
How do you sort of react to that?
Mainly with agreement, which is a bit boring. I think there's an element that I want to bring up a bit more, which is that we can see all the things that can be improved. But we've also got to say, what's the stuff that's already valuable that we need to look after? And it's the thing I think that drives me most crazy about our political situation, is theoretically, what's involved is we have one group that should be saying, how do we look after all the things of value that we've built, all our infrastructure, all our relationships, all the things, how do we keep that in good state? And that takes resources and time. And then the other group, the progressives, are saying, how do we improve things? How do we, okay, this could be even better. And those two shouldn't be at war. But that's what our political system has got to, is where the two sides have lost touch with their fundamentally, because the Conservatives are just conserving the good stuff. And they're saying we need resources to do that. And the progressives are saying, we've got all these amazing things we could be making the world so much better. And why do those two sides think they have to fight each other?
Yeah, there was something that touched me particularly in looking at, what we've got that's already good, that we need to look after and nurture and preserve and nourish.
Yeah.
Because too often we take it all for granted.
Yeah.
We don't even take the time to notice. I think I think you're onto something there. So even from whatever point you're at, it's really important to look at, what do I need to put effort into preserving? Is that
absolutely? Yeah. And some people are much better at looking after what's already there and preserving it. And some people are just interested in producing the new stuff. But the new stuff still has to be built on something. If you build a house, you actually got to build it on decent foundations. So you've actually got to have, you work on what's already there. So I think in any sort of entrepreneurial startup situation, you've really got to look at, what is it you've got to keep investing in. You could see your team of people, you've got to keep looking after them. They've got to at least flourish and function at the level that you're used to. They may become more skillful and more able, and that's a bonus. But if you're just burning them up and then chucking them away, it's such a waste.
Yeah, well, you're onto the whole, thing about people and looking after people. And the way I talk about this is is every conversation. Conversations don't just finish because we stop talking. There's the leftover, the residue. There's the review, the reflection, or the rejection of. The energy of a conversation will remain. And so the way I talk about this is putting in the plumbing.
Yeah.
You can build something. Many organisations have beautiful sinks and taps and beautiful toilet pans and beautiful, but actually when you flush the toilet or turn the tap on, the waste isn't going anywhere. It's not being sent to any kind of place where it can be transmuted. And if you take a compost toilet, it's actually very useful.
Yeah.
And so what I talk about is you start at this place, and people, the eye rolling of we've just got to get on and make the thing and sell it. But actually it's taking care of the longer term needs, and the sustainability is to make sure the plumbing's right.
Absolutely.
Because often by the time I get called in, the sewage is coming up through the floorboards because nobody knew that there was no tank to take it all away.
Well, that's what we've been seeing in the prisons for years, isn't it?
yeah, absolutely. Well, it's popping up everywhere.
Yeah. I mean, a thing that I'm curious about is at what point are some people who look at our podcasts and our discussions say, oh, can I throw some of my stuff at these two people with the dialogue roadmap and the systemic win and see what they can do to help us?
Oh, we should do that.
Because I mean, we it's like, ask us. We've got a lot to offer you. Make sure that you make good use of the value that we're actually offering here.
That's a really good point. Yeah, I think let's look at that. Let's figure out some kind of webinar or some kind of thing where we could actually welcome what people bring and see what the questions are, or some kind of place where people can, ask us stuff.
Yeah, another thing is if you've got a dream that you want to realize, whether it's just a vague idea, whether you've worked at it for years, talk to us.
Yeah.
Because if they talk to us, we'll look at it systemically. We'll look at the journey they've got planned, and we'll see whether what are your alternatives.
That's a really nice idea. I love that. We've got to think about how to do that in practical terms.
Well, the first thing is people say, "I want some help. This is the situation I'm in. Is it I'm in a horrible mess?" Who are harder to help because they have got fewer resources, or someone who is very well resourced and wants to try something to take up to the next level.
Amazing! Wow, Paul. Yes, that's rather wonderful. Let's plan for that. And anyone listening to this podcast can, of course, just find you or me and write to us.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Well, another amazing conversation, Paul. Thank you so much. It's been absolutely wonderful, excited for more conversations to come.
Me too. Thanks.
Take care.